there's no need to make comments on Aurangzeb. There's no need to say he's bad, he's good, he was a monster, because his orders speak for themselves. His orders speak of them. He was a monster, I mean, very meticulous and intelligent monster, but not only towards Hindus, but towards his own family, of course. He had his brother Dara Shikoh beheaded, his father Shah Jahan he imprisoned. It is said that he had him poisoned slowly. He had his son in prison. He was an extremely cruel man. People said that he would shiver when his elephants were cold. He would shiver in compassion. But he had the son of Shivaji Maharaj, tortured for 15 days, and his body cut in pieces and fed to the dogs. So maybe for those days it was something normal, but it's still very shocking. The thing about Aurangzeb is that today is a hero for many people, not only for historians, but for many Muslims in Pakistan and even in India. He's considered as a hero because the type of Islam that he enforced, is being enforced today. A country that doesn't want to look at its past as a country which is doomed to repeat the same mistake. Okay, my name is François Gauthier. I'm a French journalist and writer. I live in India for quite a long time. I'm married to an Indian. Of course, I came upon Aurangzeb when I was reporting on Kashmir in the 90s and early 2000s, and I saw what happened in the Valley of Kashmir. People are very ignorant about Kashmir, actually. Even in India, many people do not know that Kashmir was divided in three: Ladakh, which is Buddhist, and then Jammu, which is majority Hindu, and the Valley of Kashmir, which is the crux of the problem. And I was covering the Valley of Kashmir for a long time for one of the largest French newspapers, Le Figaro. And I saw what happened to the Hindus of Kashmir, what is called the Kashmiri Pandit. And this opened my eyes, and I started reading about Indian history. I'm not a historian, and I'm actually a journalist by accident also. So I started reading about Indian history. And of course, if you read Indian history, you come upon Aurangzeb. He's a very central figure of Indian history. He's a much praised emperor, both in India and abroad. He's been praised and praised again. We'll go a little bit into detail why he's praised. And of course, I realized then that Indian history is not written as it happened. It's very important that the youth of a country reads their history as it happened, as truthfully as possible. It's not possible to be absolutely truthful because it's often very far, and so history gets distorted. But in the case of India, history has got so distorted that people like Aurangzeb, whatever his qualities, and because he did have qualities, people like Aurangzeb are praised to heaven, and then you have national heroes like Shivaji Maharaj, in central India, or Maharana Pratap in North India, or the Rani Kittur Chennamma in South India, who are, extraordinary people of extraordinary courage, of vision. They're neglected. They're just, passed under silence and forgotten into history. So that shocked me, and I started writing books on Indian history, though, as I said, I'm not a historian. Now, we should, of course, link this talk to today, which is an important day. The Supreme Court judgment can be linked to Aurangzeb, actually, because Aurangzeb was a very meticulous emperor. He was a very intelligent, who lived long. He lived till 80. In those days, living till 80 is like living till 100 today. So he was a very meticulous emperor, and of course very rigorous and very fundamental and very strict. And every order that he gave was written down and signed with the emperor's seal, and they're preserved today, actually. But none of the historians, the modern Indian historians, whether it's Irfan Habib or Romila Thapa, have cared to look at Aurangzeb's orders because they're very enlightening. Ayodhya is just one, it's just one mosque built over a temple, whether it's Buddhist or Jain or Hindu, but there are thousands, I mean hundreds of thousands of mosques in India which are built over destroyed, razed temples. Mostly Hindus, but also, as I said, Buddhists, but the Buddhists built in wood a lot, so there is no trace left. But even in Delhi, the Qutub Minar, it still shows, that there are, Hindu, frescoes and columns. So I know a gentleman called Praful Goradia. I don't know if many of you heard about him. He wrote a book. I forgot the title of the book, but it's a photographic evidence of some of the major mosques in India with photos of, somewhere pointing out, a column or a Hindu fresco or some murti. It's amazing because we've made so much out of Ayodhya. The media has made so much out of Ayodhya. Of course, it's a very sacred place, it's Lord Ram, and it's very sacred to Hindus, but there are hundreds, there are thousands of very ancient temples, the Krishna Mathura temple, in Mathura, which was raised on the orders of Aurangzeb. We have a painting of this, and Aurangzeb ordered that the murtis be buried under the steps of the new mosque so that generations of Muslims would trample upon the Hindu idols. Hindu Masjid, this book, a remarkable book. So, Ayodhya, it's great, the decision today is great, but what I would like to say is that what's more important than a temple being built again is the inner victory, the occult victory. There's a gentleman called Sri Aurobindo who's also been neglected by historians. He's actually, for many reasons, he's been neglected. One, he was a revolutionary much before the Mahatma Gandhi. In the early 1900s, he started demanding that the British leave India, and by force if necessary. His brother was building bombs and having weapons, in one of the gardens, and Sri Aurobindo was aware of it. And in the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Aurobindo understood that sometimes violence is necessary. Sometimes when your country is trampled, your women, your rights, your culture, sometimes it is necessary. Hindus have forgotten this great truth, and yet they have the Bhagavad Gita under their nose. Sometimes it is necessary, that force be used to preserve the Dharma. And today I see in Delhi, the empty streets of Delhi, and I know that Hindus, at the least sign of trouble, tell their children stay home or their wives. Maybe I do the same for my wife. But, Hindus needs to rise up because Ayodhya is just a single case, but there are so many, and as sacred or more sacred, in Benares, the mosque which stands over the Vishwanath temple is also very ancient, it's a very ancient temple, and it's an affront to Hindus. So Aurangzeb, we come back to Aurangzeb. Now, as I started studying Indian history, I realized that Aurangzeb's firmans, his edicts were kept in two places. One is the Bikaner archives in Rajasthan, and the other one is Hyderabad. There's a museum in Hyderabad which preserved all of Aurangzeb's edicts. So I got hold of a professor of Indian history, the retired head of the Department of History of the University of Rajasthan. And at that time, there was a chief minister from the BJP, that lady Rajesh Scindia, who's not the chief minister anymore. And she helped us, and she opened the door of the Bikaner archives. There was a Muslim gentleman there who was in charge, and he told us, but nobody ever comes to see these edicts. So we got hold, and I mounted an exhibition according to these edicts. There's no need to make comments on Aurangzeb. There's no need to say he's bad, he's good, he was a monster, because his orders speak for themselves. His orders speak of, he was a monster, very meticulous and intelligent monster, but not only towards Hindus, but towards his own family, of course. He had his brother, Dara Shikoh, beheaded, his father, Shah Jahan, he imprisoned. It is said that he had him poisoned slowly. He had his son in prison. He was an extremely cruel man. People said that he would shiver when his elephants were cold. He would shiver in compassion. But He had the son of Shivaji Maharaj, tortured for 15 days, and his body cut in pieces and fed to the dogs. So maybe for those days it was something normal, but it's still very shocking. So I forgot to tell you that I've done a museum also of Indian history, because in Kashmir I saw what the Hindus suffered, and I mounted an exhibition which I opened in Habitat Center nearby with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and Mr. Advani. And slowly I made exhibition. And Aurangzeb, one of my exhibitions, now it's in a museum in Pune near the airport. I had a lot of problem with this exhibition because people, including Hindus, say that there is no need to stir up the past, that it just brings communal disharmony. But I feel that a country that doesn't want to look at its past is a country which is doomed to repeat the same mistake. And for sure, India has not looked properly at its past. It is a glorious past, actually. Aurangzeb is just one episode, but if you look at the history of Shivaji Maharaj, he was a man with a few hundred people, hardly any army was the name, hardly any weapons, who fought against the most powerful emperor. Aurangzeb was the richest and the most powerful emperor of the world in those times, more powerful than anything in Europe. And so Shivaji Maharaj, actually he died very young, and single-handedly he stopped the Mughal Empire. When he was born, the Mughal Empire was at its peak. Aurangzeb is the peak of the Mughal Empire, and when Shivaji died at the age of 52, the Mughal Empire had started to crumble. So this man, who is neglected in your history books, sometimes it's treated as a plunderer. This man, is a Napoleon. I mean, in France we have Napoleon, but I would say that Shivaji Maharaj is, higher than Napoleon, because he had vision, he had spirituality, he was devoted to Mother India. So he's an extraordinary man who's totally neglected today. In Tamil Nadu, if you say Shivaji, people think it's an actor. There's an actor who's dead now called Shivaji. I printed my exhibition in Pondicherry because it raised a lot of problems in other places, and the people who were Hindus, Tamil Hindus, nice people, they had no clue who was Shivaji Maharaj. Now in France, everybody knows who Napoleon is. Every year there are films and books. Today it's difficult to find a book about Shivaji Maharaj. They were written, 100 years ago, 60 years ago. It's difficult to find a book about this extraordinary person. Extraordinary, who was, today everybody is telling Hindus to be quiet, to be secular, but people like Shivaji Maharaj were extremely secular. They wouldn't ever harm the wives or daughters of their enemies. There are stories of both Maharana Pratap and Shivaji Maharaj scolding their sons because they had taken prisoner, some Muslim ladies. I don't know if you know the story. Maharana Pratap scolded his son, and Shivaji Maharaj scolded his son. So they were extraordinary people in their tolerance, also, in being chivalrous, in the old style, old way that we stay chivalrous. So anyway, Aurangzeb. So these are the original firmans which are preserved both in Bikaner and Hyderabad. I have a friend here, but he's not here tonight, who got hold of them, and got them scanned, and then we got them translated into Hindi and English. And according to this, we did an exhibition. Now, this is the order for the demolition of the temple of Vishwanath. I don't know how many of you understand, Farsi, but I don't. But my professor tells me that this is the actual order for the demolition. And Aurangzeb, ordered the demolition of thousands of temples, thousands of temples, and they all documented. So he said, of course, I don't know whether the Vishwanath temple will ever be rebuilt, because it's even more controversial and even more, difficult than in Ayodhya. People also don't know about Ayodhya, because I've been there, when the mosque was destroyed. First, the mosque was disused; it was not used. And secondly, there is Ayodhya, which is totally Hindu, and there's Faizabad, which is mostly Muslim. So actually, and they cohabited quite well. So the Muslims have their own mosque in Faizabad, which is quite big and well frequented. And there was this mosque planned right in the middle of this Hindu town, very sacred Hindu town, which was not used and which was like, like a what, something. So when it was destroyed, and I think that we should not forget, Mr. Advani and Mr. Murli Manohar Joshi, who were pioneers of this revival. When it was destroyed, there was nothing there. There was nothing. And there was nobody got hurt, There was no clash, there was no fight. And yet, once it got destroyed, it was felt by the entire Muslim world that it was an insult. Not only to Indian Muslims, but to Bangladeshi Muslims, to Pakistani Muslims, to Saudi Muslims, and the reprisal, which was the bombing of Mumbai, killed thousands of people. Whereas the destruction of the mosque of Ayodhya, there was not a single person who was hurt. So if you're a journalist or if you're a historian, you need to get your facts right. And these facts have never been explained properly, even to Indians, that there are two twin cities. One is Faizabad, which is Muslim, one is Ayodhya, which is a very ancient Hindu town. And this mosque was in the middle of Ayodhya. You have to go there to see. But even your own journalists don't report that. I rarely read in the Indian press that there are actually two twin cities. So anyway, Aurangzeb was a very strict, guy, and he said it's even improper for a Muslim. Okay, this is one order which I can't translate for you, but my professor told me that it's exactly what it says. It's improper for a Muslim to look at a Hindu temple. And even today, though Hindu, I'm married to Hindu, and my father was a very staunch Catholic and a very good man. So my wife had no problem going to church with him, and no problem going to church. For a Hindu, it's natural, to go to church, even to go to a mosque, whether it's the Ajmer Dargah. I don't know how many of you know about the Ajmer Dargah, which is supposed to be a Sufi mosque, but which isn't a Sufi mosque really. So Hindus have no problem, but the reverse is not true, unfortunately. The reverse is not true. It's been a one-way traffic, and it remains a one-way traffic today. This order of Aurangzeb, the thing about Aurangzeb is that today is a hero for many people, not only for historians, but for many Muslims in Pakistan and even in India. He's considered as a hero because the type of Islam that he enforced, is being enforced today. The same type of Islam, for a Muslim to enter a Hindu temple is something which is not possible. Whether a Hindu will enter a mosque or Hindu will go and worship in a dargah without any problem. So the fascination about Aurangzeb is that he's very relevant today. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah? It's not that there's a fascination for a guy who was dead long ago and did things good or bad. But the fascination for Aurangzeb is that he's still very relevant today. The battle that is going on in the world is actually between what Aurangzeb represented and, and the knowledge which is today only alive in India. The knowledge of who am I, why am I born again and again, what happens when I die, what is Dharma, what is Karma, how God manifests himself or herself at different times under different names. This knowledge used to be everywhere in the world. And Aurangzeb fought against that knowledge. He fought very ruthlessly and very intelligently and very meticulously. And today that battle is still going on. It's actually become more acute today. This is also a very important temple in Mathura, and it is in that instant that Aurangzeb ranted against looking at a Hindu temple. That's again a firmament. I wish they had put some of my paintings. So I think Hindus suffered a lot under Aurangzeb because Aurangzeb forbade them to ride any horses or elephants or palanquins. He imposed the jizya tax. You know all about the jizya tax, which was a very humiliating and difficult tax. Of course, he raised a lot of temples. He had a lot of Hindus killed. So they suffered a lot under Aurangzeb, but they survived. The great thing about Hindus is that they've survived so much of onslaught. So these are all, different firmans. So this is a restriction on gathering of Hindus. Like today there's a restriction, I don't know if it's there in Delhi, that, more than 5 people cannot gather. I think it's called Art 144. Yes. It's a very discriminatory, It's very discriminatory because Muslims, anything happens, they go down in the streets, nobody can stop them, nobody can say anything. But people know that Hindus, they will not revolt. They will listen. It's ingrained in their genes, that they will not revolt, they will just listen. Even if they're told that, you go and die like sheep, they will listen. So I find this is, this is unfair in a way, because I know that the spirit of brotherhood, of fraternity, that every politician and the Prime Minister himself have been, harping on. It's great, it is great, but it's not a fact, it's not, it's idealistic, but it's dangerous also. It's dangerous because the moment is not about fraternity, the moment is about standing ground for that knowledge which is in danger. This knowledge that Aurangzeb attacked so ruthlessly, it's being attacked today from many sides. In those days, there were only Aurangzeb, but today from many sides, from your intelligentsia, from the Marxists, from the media, from Christian conversions, from Islamization. People go and work in the Gulf, and they come back more radicalized, So this knowledge is being attacked today. It's under threat. I'm not talking about Hinduism. Today is not a victory for a Hindu temple. Today is a victory for this knowledge which props up Hinduism, which props up this religion that people call the Hindus. You understand what I'm saying? Behind Hinduism there's a knowledge, which when I came as a Frenchman struck me, that there are many questions that the West is asking now. Why depression, why death, what's the point to live, which are answered here by many gurus and many books and, by even simple people in the countryside. So this knowledge is under threat today. It was under threat with Aurangzeb, and, but it survived. But today it's more under threat. So to speak about fraternity and brotherhood is wrong. What should be done is that, this knowledge needs to be protected. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. Because it's lost in the world. It used to be there, this knowledge, in Egypt, in Greece, in Mesopotamia, even, in Europe among the Celts, But today it's disappeared. A country like Egypt, which had such great occultism, such great spirituality, it's become, totally Muslim. So here you can see that India resisted the onslaught of Aurangzeb. The Hindus were able to resist and to survive because many countries did not survive. Many countries did not survive. Greece today is just, just in the history books and in the ruins. So is Rome, and so is Mesopotamia, and so is Egypt. You understand what I'm saying? So Hindus have to understand that they are the inheritors of this knowledge. And that being inheritor of that knowledge is a responsibility. That you need to stand up and fight. I'm not saying necessarily physically fight, but stand up for your country, for this knowledge, which Aurangzeb attacked so ruthlessly. Okay, so that's the famous jizya tax. I wish there were some paintings of my... So what I did, is that I got painters in Jaipur, and under the order of my historian, they did paintings reenacting the orders of Aurangzeb. For instance, the destruction of the Mathura, Krishna Mathura temple, we have a painting that shows the destruction of Somnath temple, the famous Somnath temple, which was destroyed and raised 7 times. 1 time was by Aurangzeb. So we have Aurangzeb's order, and my painters did a show of the destruction of the Somnath temple, which is very, very important. And when I showed this exhibition in Chennai, because from Delhi I took it to different places, and one was Chennai, there was a local Muslim gentleman. He objected to this painting, and actually he was a friend of the of the son of the then chief minister, Mr. Karunidhi. He was a friend of Stalin, and he got the police to come and close down the exhibition and took the ladies in jail, and it took me 6 months to get back this exhibition. You know? But actually, not only the destruction of Somnath temple is a historical fact, but there is an order of Aurangzeb, which, you know, anybody who cares to, you know, translate it will see that it's a genuine order. So 63 temple in Chittor. Chittor is a very interesting place because this is where also, you know, another great Indian hero, Maharana Pratap, and his father Uday Singh fought. And ultimately Akbar, which is one of the better, of course, one of the better Mughal emperors, ultimately Akbar conquered Chittor, you know, and had 30,000 Hindus killed, and there were also 22,000 women and girls who threw themselves in the fire, so as not to be taken as slaves. So the conversion, you know, the funny thing about Kashmir is that most of the Kashmiris today, Muslims, are converted Hindus. You know, there are very few, maybe few that came from Iran, you know, few that came from Afghanistan, you know, of these nobles remaining today. But most of the converted Hindus are today, you know, the most strident. So this is what is fearful about Islam, is that it converts people by force, you know, by coercion. And 2, 3, 4, 5 generations later, these people have forgotten their roots, have forgotten where they came from, have forgotten how much their ancestors suffered. So and Aurangzeb was a great proponent of conversion, either by force or even by, you know, monetary, you know, incitation. And I was listening to that lady about the FCRA. What was the name of that lady who came before? Ah, yes, yes. So she was talking about the FCRA and the NGOs. Now, my knowledge, because I keep shuttling between Delhi and Pune and Tamil Nadu, is that you know, they made all these laws to target these big missionaries, but it makes no difference, because in Tamil Nadu and Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, at least, they have government protection. They have local government protection. So the conversion is going on. You know, it makes no difference. But those who are suffering are the small people. You know, these laws against FCRA and against NGOs. Well, I have a trust to build that museum. You know, it's absolutely above the board. And sometimes we get some donation from the US, from our sister concern. We got $7,000 recently. They ask so many questions, you know, as if I'm a criminal. You know. And then once it is converted in rupees legally, again you face problem. The other day I wanted to withdraw for the salary, you know, and they said you cannot withdraw more than 2,000 rupees. Can you imagine? You can't withdraw more than 2,000 rupees at a time from an FCRA account. So they're targeting the big missionary, the big NGO, but actually it's the small people who get, you know, who are suffering, the honest people. They don't allow you to use online transfer from these FCRA accounts. It's crazy, you know. Mr. Modi doesn't realize that his reforms, you know, they're good, you know, but when they reach the ground, the bureaucrats have diluted it, you know, they have perverted it, and so they have no effect on the big people. The conversion is going on, you know, fast. In Tamil Nadu, you know, with the backing of the Dravidian movements, whether they're DMK or IDMK, in Andhra Pradesh now they have a Christian chief minister. You know, it's going on, you know. And in Delhi, they don't realize that all these laws they're making are not reaching the ground. That is the problem with Delhi. I'm sorry, we're all from Delhi, but the problem of Delhi is that it's a big bubble, you know. And people live in a big bubble and they think that, you know, it's so far away from the rest of India. So far away, not only physically, but, you know, psychologically. The heart of India, whether it's Indore, or whether it's Pune, whether it's Tamil Nadu and Kerala, is so far away from Delhi. So all these big order, you know, the demonetization, you know, they're good reforms, but they're not reaching the grassroots. And people continue to cheat in India because Aurangzeb made their life miserable, and it's got in their genes that to survive you need to cheat. But it's not true anymore. You don't need to cheat today in India. You're not paying more taxes than in my country, in France. There's no need to cheat, but cheating is ingrained in the genes. So this is also a very famous temple, the Jagannath Temple of Orissa. So this is just to say that Ayodhya is just one temple. You know, it's been made into a big issue, but it's just one of the temples. You know, and of course it's an important day. It's a victory today, but it is the occult victory which is more important than the coming up of the temple. The Jagannath Temple it's been rebuilt, of course, but it was an extraordinary temple. So you see, that's what they say. The rupees 4, Aurangzeb had ordered that with 4 rupees if you convert, if you're a Hindu male, with 4 rupees, you know, you get 4 rupees if you convert to Islam for a male, and 2 if you're a, I mean, it must have been a lot of money in those days, I don't know. Rupees 500 years ago, maybe, I don't know, 4 lakhs, I don't know. Now, also the other aspect of this talk is why the fascination of historians about Aurangzeb. You know, this is actually very important, especially the Western historians. Why are they so fascinated with Aurangzeb, knowing that you know, there are so many facts showing that he was a monster? What, as I said, he was very meticulous. He was an emperor that had every order written down and signed and sealed. Secondly, as I said before, you know, he was ahead of his times. You know, what we see today with the caliphate, the revival of the caliphate, that Baghdadi was killed, you know, is that it's the same impulse, you know, of imposing upon the world the purest of Islam. And the purest of Islam means that it is ruthless. You know, it will burn people, it will decapitate them, you know, it will slit their throats online today, because it is the purest of Islam. So people, you know, people don't understand is that if you read the Quran, the people who are reading the Quran today are the Taliban and the ISIS. They're the guys who are reading the Quran properly, you know, because they apply it to the letter. And the Quran was written, you know, for time. It was okay in those times where it was written. There were ruthless times, there were difficult times, there were cruel times. So the Quran was okay for those times. The problem that is not being, you know, it's not been adapted to modern times, you know. So they're applying something which was written for the Middle Ages, where it was okay to, you know, decapitate people, it was okay to stone women, you know. For those days it was all right. But today they went to apply it. So the fascination for Aurangzeb is that he was ahead of his time, you know. He wanted to impose an Islam which was absolutely pure. And the second thing is that, of course, Western historians have a complex of superiority. They think that, you know, the West is, they might not, you know, consciously, but they think that the West is a superior civilization to the Hindus. And the Hindus would adore, you know, gods of stones or wood, you know, are pagans. You know, they come, Aurangzeb and Christianity have a meeting point somewhere, you know, that paganism. Paganism is people who adore millions of gods. So Islam says that this is not permissible, there should be no image, and Christianity finds also that there's only one God, which is true. So there is a meeting point between Aurangzeb and, you know, and the West. And this is why Western historians absolutely love Aurangzeb.
She says that, you know, Aurangzeb was not as cruel as he was made out to be, and she's writing books on this and, you know, appreciating in the name of secularism and all. So at one time they are, you know, glorifying, as you said, glorifying Aurangzeb and other cruel rulers, and there are books written by Hindus themselves who say that, oh, our alternate research has shown that Swami Vivekananda, for example, was a Hindu supremacist. So with this kind of things being done by our own people, what do you think is the way out?
First is that, you know, these Aurangzeb firmans are there, you know. I mean, our exhibition is online, you know, anybody can consult it, and they can see that Aurangzeb actually had orders destroying temples, converting Hindus. So to counter this thing about Aurangzeb being not so bad, they just have to say the firmans are there, you know, so there is no thing. And the second thing is to prop up your own heroes, you know. I mean, Hindus have so many heroes and heroines. You know, like in France, we have Joan of Arc, you know, and we love Joan of Arc. I don't know, you all know about Joan of Arc? But India has got, you know, dozens of Joan of Arcs, you know, great queens who were like Aliabai, who was adopted. She was not even of royal blood, you know. She was a great queen, you know. She was compassionate. She built dharamsala. She built temples. She had an army of women, you know. She was ahead of her time also. So you need to, because the problem is that your children are not proud of their own history. That's the great problem in India, that your education is still the British education, and you make children who are just good for export because they don't know anything about the history, about their poets, about their philosophers, you know. I know about my poets, I know my philosophers, you know, I know my warriors, I know about Napoleon, I know about Victor Hugo. So as a French boy, I grew up to be proud of being French. But in India, you have children who are not proud to be Indians, you know, so they just export themselves. I'm talking about Hindus there, you know. They just export themselves, and you meet RSS people and BG people, you ask them, where are your children? They're in the US, they're in Harvard, they're here, they're there. It's a shame, you know, that you have such an ancient and great country, and you don't talk about it. You know, you don't glorify and if you glorify them, you're called a bigot. But the bigot was Aurangzeb, you know, because he enforced, you know, his one God, you know, in the most ruthless, and it is proved. Yeah.
I have a question on that. You see, we always talk about Christians and Islam and Buddhists and so many different religions. It appears to me at ground level, absolutely ground level, there are only two religions.
What do you mean two
I will
religions?
explain that one religion is in which we believe that we are part of nature. And we have to behave like that. We are part of nature. And the other religion is we are exclusive special people, and we have a mandate from God to manage nature.
So what is your question, sir?
Okay, so my question is, does it make sense to you? Okay, because in Christianity as well as in Islam, both of them are the concept of kafir. And both of them are fighting for the same thing.
No, so of course, you're talking about monotheism versus polytheism?
Yeah, but essentially that is the difference. Because both of them are trying to convert others into their faith. And they believe we have one God, and here say you believe in many gods. And we say no, we are.
Yeah, but Christianity has evolved, you know, today. You know, Christians today they come to India, they can enter a temple, they don't feel they're committing a sin, you know. Christianity in the West, not in India, because the Christianity practiced in India is the one that my grandfather practiced, you know. But Christianity in the West has evolved, and, you know, the Pope is slowly accepting that there are other religions. For the moment, Buddhism is politically correct because the Dalai Lama, so they accept Buddhism, but eventually they will accept other religions. But Islam remains entrenched, you know, in the belief that there's only one God, you know, and if you don't believe in that God, you may be killed. So there's a difference between Christianity and Islam today. I mean, and I think the Christian world, ultimately, Islam is fighting a war against, you know, the entire world.
Right.
And the moment China will join, because China has got their own problem. Of course, they're supporting Pakistan for political reasons because they want to encircle India. But they have their own problem with their Muslims, you know. The moment China joins the war, you know, the entire world, it's not a war that Islam can win. Islam cannot win that war.
So first of all, thank you for all the work you have been doing, especially from days when it was not popular to do so. Okay, and you made the statement that Islam and Christianity have the common ground, that they are against polytheism, idolatry, and therefore there is some common ground. But what explains the prevalent negationism that is practiced by academics who are ostensibly secular, but who turn out to be apologists for one of these ideologies?
Okay, good question. No, so India is a colonized country. You know, if you compare India and China, you see that China was never really colonized. There were the Boxers, but it was a very small thing. So the Chinese are very proud. I mean, to the point of, you know, of ruthlessness. You know, they don't take anything lying down, and the world respects China. You know? China gets a lot more respect from the world, from the West, that India gets. But the problem is that the Indian mind has been colonized, you see. The Indian mind has been colonized. It's not only the body that were colonized, it's that the Indian mind is that the British were successful in, you know, enslaving the Indian mind, so that the Indian mind today thinks the way the British wanted them to think. So if you look at your intelligentsia, your media, it is looking at India through Western eyes, Western critical eyes. You know. It hasn't got any parameters to look at India with Indian eyes. You know. If I know about Kalidasa, I know about Sri Aurobindo, you know, I know about Shivaji Maharaj, you know, I can look at my country with some sympathy. You understand what I'm saying? This is very important, you know. I will, as a journalist, or you know, or as a scholar, or I will look at India with Indian eyes. But I'm looking at my own country with Western eyes, which are very critical. So you have an intelligentsia today and journalism, which are still colonized by the British. Their mind is colonized. You know, I mean, it's not even servile, you know, because some of them are brilliant people. You know, nobody is saying that NDTV or, you know, or Pankaj Mishra is, you know, is not brilliant. They are brilliant people, but they're brilliant clones. You see, the problem is that most people are brilliant clones. You know, you in Delhi today, you see all these intellectuals. Or you know, yesterday I went to a dinner and there was some of my wife's family. You know, and they criticize Mr. Modi, and but they're just repeating things without understanding them. You know, most people go by second-hand opinions, what they read in the paper, what their father has said before them. So what my father has said, I will keep on repeating in a different way and maybe in a more brilliant manner. But I'm just a clone. I'm just an ape. You know? So in India, you have so many brilliant apes. You understand what I'm saying? You know. So rather than thinking for myself, you know, I mean, because I'm a Frenchman, I'm brought up Catholic, you know, I come from a totally different atavism. But then when I came to India, I started thinking differently. Not to repeat what, you know, I heard about Indians, you know, about fakirs, about, you know, idols. But I started thinking for myself, you know, I was lucky. So I shifted completely. What I'm saying today is totally different from my teachers or my father. But most people go on repeating, you know, whether they're, you know, proper Hindus or whether they're secular, you know, they just keep on repeating what secondhand. What you need is to do your first-hand experience. And this is what your journalists are not doing. They're just repeating what the British told them to repeat 300 years ago. Okay, they do it differently and brilliantly, but they're just apes, brilliant apes. Get what I'm saying? So that's why they integrate so well in the West.
I have been following you for quite some time, and I have been following you for quite some time.
Thank you.
And I know that you have started an exhibition in Pune also.
A museum.
Regarding, yes,
museum.
Mara. My question is, the point you raised that in India, the majority of people, do not have that self-respect or the heroes which could be looked upon to. Can you start an initiative for writing history for the small kids so that they could inculcate a sense of Indianness and the pride in their own civilization?
Okay, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so first I want to say that what I'm saying, I'm just repeating what, you know, your sages have said, Sri Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, you know. So it's not that I've discovered anything or I'm doing anything extraordinary. You know, this museum I've started is been a very difficult enterprise, and I don't know how long I'm going to do it. But this is my way of, you know, of saying, you know, we can do it. You know, you can have Indian history as it happened. You can start movements or museums or schools. But there are a billion Hindus today. You know, I mean, Hindus have a mentality. Again, this enslavement. You know, Hindus have a mentality of a minority. But there are a billion. 1 in every 6 person on this planet is a Hindu. And one of the most enlightened, educated, affluent communities, you know, Hindus, wherever they have gone, are doing well in the US, in UK, in Canada, everywhere, in the Fijis, you know. But they have a mentality of a minority, you know. They don't understand that they have the number, the power, the brains. This is a tragedy, actually. No, so there's an improvement today. The social media has given, you know, Hindus the space, because Hindus can't have the space in the mainstream media. It is not open to them. But in the social media, there's a certain freedom. So you can see today that nationalism has risen in the social media. And that lady I forgot her name again, who was there, you know, she's very active in the social media. And there are others like Shefali Vadia, you know. So, but you know, the social media is still marginal. It doesn't really shape, you know, what your politicians will say. you can see that Mr. Modi is a prisoner of that. Even Mr. Modi was the prime minister that India has been waiting for. But I think Nehru was a product of the British. The British thinking. I mean, Nehru adopted everything that was British. Today, Supreme Court actually is surprising that judgment they made today, because it's more or less the same system that the British had, the education same system, the constitution the same system, with a president who has no power, like a viceroy, but cost a lot of money, and the prime minister who has the power, and everything centralized in one place, which is Delhi. So actually Nehru adopted the entire British system without changing it. So we are still paying the price today. Mr. Gandhi is a different story. I don't want to get into here. It's a different story. But yes, you're right.
My question actually is on 2 points. One is the point you mentioned about the decolonization of the Indian mind. And I also now recall one of your quotes, which was very apt, which is that the Indian constitution is the only constitution which is so anti-majority. So how much do you think this constitution of ours is responsible?
You're talking about the constitution of
India, yes, yes, Constitution of India. How much is this Constitution of India then responsible for the situation that we have 70 years later, where educated people are actually the most anti-Hindu, and the uneducated ones are not so? If you go into the hinterlands, they're not. They really sort of know who they are. They're sorted. Right. So how do we then work around this? What is the solution in your?
No. India needs a revolution. India needs a revolution, and if you look at it from a mental point of view, it seems impossible. But Hindus have survived so many genocide, so much ordeal, so much, and they survived, this knowledge has survived up to today, which is a miracle in itself. So India is a miracle. India is a miracle. But the constitution needs to be changed, They need to have a prime minister who is elected directly by the people, there are so many different systems, the US system, the French system. Either you have a president who is elected and has the power, who chooses a prime minister among the majority. But at the moment, it's a total, it's a useless constitution. You have, and you give so much power to your politicians. So much power. People from Tamil Nadu or Kerala, they may come with a goodwill. They're elected, by the people. But when they come to Delhi and they get their bungalows, and so many people around them, and cars, and they go in that useless parliament, which is like a, no air and no natural light, no air, and so much. So they lose their head, The power that politicians wield in India is tremendous, tremendous, and it's disproportionate. So I don't know how Mr. Modi will do it, because to change the constitution is a huge job, but it has to be done. And I think the capital should be shifted away to central India. This will break the backbone of the bureaucracy which is ruling India today. The problem, is the bureaucracy of India. It's huge. It's getting huge. I remember going to Shastri Bhavan, when I started as a young journalist. Today there are 4 times more cars and 4 times more bureaucrats. So the bureaucracy has increased in the last 30 years. It's multiplied by 3 at least. So there needs to be a revolution, but I think we should trust Mr. Modi, because already he's achieved many things that people say. Even I was doubtful that Article 370 would be removed, because it's totally unjust. And again, your media didn't cover it properly. You should explain that any person from Kashmir can go and open a shop. And actually, the Muslims of the Valley of Kashmir today, they control the souvenir trade in India. You know that. In Pune or in Pondicherry, they're there, But no Indian can go to Kashmir. So this is a simple explanation, If you're a journalist, you get your facts right and you tell your readers. But it was not done.
On the basis of what you explain and what I have read and have taught to my students, I come to the conclusion that the Indian national movement was totally a farce. What happened in last 70 years already, the script was written during the national movement with advent of Gandhi on the national platform. He talked about Hindu-Muslim unity, he talked about untouchability and everything. Don't you think that the lens was Western only?
No, that's right. The first thing to be rewritten is the history of Indian independence. That's the first thing to be rewritten, because it's totally false. There were people, as I said, Sri Aurobindo, and before him there were other people, and there was Tilak also. There were so many great people who much before Mahatma Gandhi, sought India's independence, but these people have been forgotten by history. There's a museum in Parliament. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. In the Parliament annex, there's a museum done by a guy who's dead now, Somnath Chatterjee, I think his name was Somnath Chatterjee. Yeah. And in this museum, it costs a lot of money. I can't get money for my museum, but this guy must have got 40, 50 crores. And in the museum, the history of India starts with more or less with Ashoka, because Ashoka was Buddhist. So actually, there's a perversion there. Okay, Ashoka didn't convert because of the horrors of war. He converted because of political compulsion. There were Jain movement and there were Buddhist movement fighting at those times. So anyway, it started with Ashoka and then Akbar, then jumps to Nehru and Gandhi. That's it.
This means
Must have cost 40 crores, man.
This is regarding Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb reached a height up. He was at the pinnacle and everything. He was central power and became an ultimate authority. He had a fantastic army and was controlling complete. But how did everything collapse after that?
As I said, Shivaji is the one who brought down Aurangzeb. Shivaji Maharaj. Aurangzeb wrote a will. I don't know how many of you are aware that Aurangzeb wrote his own will by hand. Actually, in our exhibition, we have a painting of Aurangzeb writing his own will. He was already 80 and he wrote his own will. In his own will, he said two important things in his own will. One is, I should have never let Shivaji Maharaj escape from Agra. You know that Shivaji Maharaj was, he was trapped into coming to Agra. And then Aurangzeb put a 7 rings security around him. Like Mr. Modi today, there's 7 ring security, but the 7 ring to stop Shivaji Maharaj from escaping. And Shivaji Maharaj escaped in the most, romantic and extraordinary manner, I mean, this only should be described in all, Indian history books, because the way that Shivaji Maharaj escaped, from a 7 security ring put by the most powerful emperor in the world, is magic, And it should be taught to children. There should be video games on it. There should be film, but of course, it is not there. The second thing he said, never trust your sons. So you can imagine what what kind of man, says that, never trust your sons. And indeed, I think he killed one of his sons and the other got imprisoned. And he beheaded his brother Dara Shikoh for apostasy. Yes.
So there was a slide that mentioned that Aurangzeb also ordered the destruction of Jagannath Puri temple. So how did it survive? Because the current structure looks older than Aurangzeb. So what's the story behind that?
What's your question, sorry?
There was a slide. There was a slide.
No, it was rebuilt, I think. It was rebuilt, Jagannath. Huh?
So it was actually
like Somnath temple, it was rebuilt many times, And the last one, I think, was 1950 by Sardar Patel.
In every war, allies plays a important role. So, how you are making allies in terms of academia or in terms of other fields?
What do you mean?
So, what I'm saying is like how you are. There is a Srijan is a platform where like-minded peoples like you and others they are contributing in this manner. Indic Talk is also one of them. So, what else is being done for making allies in this kind of war?
No, I mean, if Hindus would regroup themselves, they don't need any allies. Because the problem of Hindus is disunity, is that betraying, is that Hindus have always been betrayed by Hindus, and it's still true today that the most brilliant, enemies of Hindus are often Hindus. In the US, you see, the Washington Post or the New York Times or CNN, they find Hindus, academics in the US, who speak, vehemently against Hindus. So I would say that the crux of the problem that if Hindus would unite, at a local level, in the online groups, in the US there must be, 20,000, 40,000 Hindu groups, doctors and from Kerala and from and all, fighting each other and all disunited. When I went to the World Hindu Conference in Chicago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I forgot. It was boycotted by some of the major Hindu organizations, like HAF, and actually they persuaded that that American congressman was a Hindu not to come. So she didn't come to the conference. So again, Hindus have betrayed Hindus, and it's still true today. So Hindus need to unite. I'm only, Westerner, who's fighting for what I believe is true and right and good. But I can't do more than that if Hindus don't unite. You get my point? Yes. So you should do it at your own level.